Welcome to module number 1. It's approximately 9 a.m.-ish this morning, and here at ODTN Telecom, everything seems to have been going quite well. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that really got us wondering about any of the rules we have in place, but there's always an exception to the rule. And it appears that while everything from our end seems to be going relatively smooth, word has come in that a few customers, perhaps even more than a few, are experiencing some sort of a disruption with their wireless mobile services as well as their internet services. How the media got to know about this before us, we will find out soon, but I'd like to draw to your attention to our first media report from cyberX News.
This is Roshan Khan from cyberX News. As of 8 a.m., a major telecom outage has been reported, with 80% of affected users in British Columbia. The source of the disruption remains unclear, but industry experts are raising early warnings about potential security vulnerabilities. Authorities are urging caution, and while there is no confirmation of a cyber attack, concerns are growing as this disruption spreads across multiple sectors. With investigations underway, telecom industry is on high alert for further impact. Stay with cyberX News as we find out more about this developing story.
Well, there you have it. The news report seems to indicate as of 8 a.m. this morning, and also throughout a random figure of 80%. I do not know how that number has come about. Alex, I know Shrey has just gotten into the desk here and will probably be looking at some of our maps at this point. But Alex, based on that report alone, what do you recommend is our first step that we need to follow through on?
Well, we are scratching our heads. We're looking at our dashboards and we're not seeing anything out of the ordinary. You know, a lot of alerts, but that's just the waterfall of alerts that you get on a SOC dashboard. So we are going to start working with the NOC to start assessing if this is a real situation. We're not unfamiliar with cyber incidents being reported outside of our testing tools and our security monitoring tools, but coming from the media directly is caught us off guard. So we're digging through the logs.
Okay, Alex, I'm joined here, as you can see, by a number of individuals from our team. And they will have a series of questions, and I invite them to chime in as we're trying to just get a handle on what is going on at this point. Mary, I'll turn over to you very, very quickly. We do have this initial report that's come in, but as per our playbooks, we don't necessarily want to respond to this right away. Are there any steps that you want to take in terms of following through on this story, or is it status quo on your end right now?
I'm not sure of a status quo because right now it is a news story. So with the news story, it will spread. So in terms of the social media channels, so part of that is we should probably look at, do we put out a social media or some sort of post saying that we are investigating the media reports. Right now we don't see anything, but I think we need to provide some sort of response because when you see news stories, 80% outages, that's going to cause some questions. So part of that is, do we acknowledge just saying that we are investigating the reports that we have seen in media?
Okay. Michael, early days, we've heard from Alex. Is there any specific instructions at this point that Alex and Shrey need to keep in mind in terms of the data that we need to see?
Well, I would say at the beginning, just to remind them that without getting too technical, things like file creation and process creation, they don't lie. If something is there, it's there. If something it's not, it's not. And leave it at that. We want to try and avoid biases and that at this point. Just focus on the logs and the facts.
Fair enough. Pearl, I see that you'd like to chime in. Pearl, please go. And I just want to remind everyone, try to speak into the mic as much as possible. Pearl.
Yes, thanks everyone. I wanted to notify everybody that before one of my team members left for vacation, they did notify me of an email that they had received from one of our clients threat intel platform reflecting something similar. So I don't have a full information right now, but I'm going to chase my team member down and see how it might relate to that. So I'll keep you all posted. And Michael, we would also need to check in on the configurations between the TI platform and the SOC platform, just to make sure they are still running in real time.
All right, I am trying to see if I can actually get you that email that you mentioned, Pearl, and it should hopefully pop up very shortly for all of you on your screens in front of you, and then shortly up on stage as well. So everybody should be aware of this, and perhaps Shrey and Alex, this is something that you may want to pay attention to. For everybody that's watching, I'll actually read out the email to you verbatim, so thank you, Pearl, for bringing this to our attention. This actually goes back 24 days ago to March 10th, and I'm going to read it verbatim. It comes from Emily, and I can confirm Emily is part of our HR team, although I believe Emily at this point is on vacation. And I have to repeat that Emily's not part of our HR team. Emily is part of our security team, Alex, if I'm not mistaken, and she is on vacation, but she did send an email to HR. And that email said, "Hi team, it has come to our attention that several job postings include detailed information about our network structure and tools. Sharing such specific technical details poses a security risk, potentially exposing vulnerabilities. We must take immediate action to review these postings and remove any technical specifics to safeguard our systems. I've identified 2 postings where this issue is present: network administrator and systems engineer. I recommend that we address this promptly and ensure that all future job descriptions avoid sharing sensitive information. Please let me know if you'd like to discuss this further. And what I can also bring to the table is that no action was taken on this. I fail to understand why a follow-up did not happen, but no action was taken on changing some of those job postings." Mohammed, I thank you for joining us as one of the industry experts. Based on what Pearl has just said, and we have the security team that's getting into shape and pulling things as needed, is there anything we need to be drawing from this potential email, or is it something we can overlook?
No, definitely don't overlook this. Some things to understand here is, number one, reviewing those job postings to see exactly what data was exposed, understanding how that exposes the back-end infrastructure. The other thing you need to understand here is the roles have been specified. So network administrator and system engineer roles, that implies that they have access to that infrastructure. So from that, you should be pulling on that thread. Take a look at all the existing accounts, all the existing roles that have similar permissions, because that's going to be your starting pool to try and identify, is it possible that those users have been targeted? One other thing I would note here is, depending on the date at which this job posting was made, take a look at who applied and whether or not there were any hirings done as a result of this. Keep those users into the pool as well. This is a really rich resource here. Obviously, this was a bit of a slip up, but it gives you a bit of a leg up on your investigation.
Antoine, if I can have you come in as well as one of our experts who's kindly joined us, is there anything you'd like to add to what our colleague here, Mohammed, has shared?
Absolutely. Something that immediately comes to mind is given we're telecom, and you know, if this does turn out to be a real incident, then we can't rule out nation states or very, I'll just say, sophisticated actors. So if they're looking at job postings and they're able to get the technical things that they need from that, I think we have to start looking at, you know, everything that we might be seeing in terms of potentially recently activated service accounts. Like we potentially thinking of supply chain breaches. I don't think that we're looking for something that's going to be of low sophistication. We're going to want to look at something that, you know, nation states might be attempting.
This word of nation states has come up, and in the next 5 minutes, I'd like to go to the technical team again, and perhaps, Shrey, if you have anything to show us, I'd like to queue you up for that. But this idea of nation state has come up. Rob, we have you at the table right now. A big statement has just been made. Is there anything at this point that, from a legal perspective, we need to be preparing for? Any feedback you can give us at this point is appreciated, and I will ask everyone again, speak into the mic and a little louder. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So even at this early stage, seeing in external communications, the communications team obviously would tip off internal resources, and legal would hear about that. And so one of the things that would become important to everybody is to understand that we don't want to slow anybody down with some of the legal concerns, but this sounds serious. And so as a result, you'll have to begin to work through privileged communications. And so that's an important step for everybody to think about during an incident response. Technically, I know that you want to get after this, and it's important that we support you legally. Just understand that there's important communications impacts as well. So the legal team will talk about the specifics to privileged communications and some of the actions that follow. But at this point, there's a good likelihood that privileged communications will be enforced, and that also affects the external stakeholders you have. So that may be impactful as you think about how you respond to today's event.
Fair enough. Octavia, welcome to the scenario as it unfolds right now. There's a couple of things that have been transpiring, and very shortly we will get an update from the technical team that has a dotted line into you as well. Besides what Michael had advised us, is there anything from a technical perspective that you want to share at this early stage?
Yeah, thanks. One of the things that we're just taking on the information that was provided for us. We are going to look into those job postings to identify exactly what was there. We're also looking at not just who applied to the job posting, but how long they've been up, and trying to make sure that we're, really looking at if we need to do anything with our systems, if we need to maybe add additional layers, if our IP addresses were exposed or what was exposed. Also, I'm going to work with our head of HR to actually look at postings going forward. And so we're just doing our due diligence. Right now, it is not a security incident. Right now, we are just investigating. And so we have to make sure that we kind of focus on the investigation, focus on the information we know, and I just ask if anyone has any additional information, please make sure we funnel it through the proper channels.
There's an important note over there where you said, let's share this from the important channels. And Shrey, let me know, or Alex, when you folks are ready with some updates for me. Hardeep, in terms of our communications right now, we've gathered everyone here. Is there anything else we need to keep in mind in terms of how we're communicating at this point? From Mary's perspective, we've heard that nothing's going out to the media at this point. Anything in terms of how our internal team and this CSIRT, how are we responding to the situation? Anything we need to keep in mind for our internal comms?
Yeah, I think what Mary was mentioning is that we should probably try to have at least a holding message ready when we're ready to communicate. So that's something definitely. And then who are we going to communicate to? So part of that is monitoring our social media channels and seeing how that situation is evolving, right? I think the other piece is internally around, how do you communicate, whether it's to employees, I would say is, maybe some kind of message just so that, they're not, or, at least a reminder that, they're not talking to the media, right? Because we definitely would probably need some type of spokesperson if this gets out or gets wider. And internally, I would say is, as Rob mentioned, is one of the biggest pieces there, ensuring that there is privilege, all the communications marked as privilege. Because if this turns into something bigger, that privilege aspect is what's going to actually protect us all in the future.
All right, as I'm working on gathering a few items over here, I do encourage you to follow up if you have anything that comes to your mind at this point. I do want to make a note to the online audience. I am receiving some of the questions that you are dropping in the chat. I will, at a certain juncture, try to see if I can get to them and weave them into the discussion here, but keep them going, and thank you for that. Shrey, at this point, I'm looking at you and Alex. I think Newman and Michael are looking at you as well. Is there any environment that you can show us at this point and anything that you can trigger our attention to right now?
Absolutely, Ali. It should be on the screen very shortly, but as of 9:46 a.m., I'm in constant touch with the engineers. They have not reported anything as of now. The baseline seems to be normal. As you can see, everything seems to be green. The entire network is properly up and running. I'm not sure how the media is reporting and why they are reporting the outage and downtimes, the amount of alerts we are receiving, they are pretty normal, as expected, 20 to 25 per hour. That's something which we are normal at.
Yeah, but Shrey, I'm sorry, you're saying it's looking like normal, but even if I go by one news report, it's reporting an expansive outage. Newman, I don't know how well to read into this because, yes, it looks normal, but is there something that we're missing here, or is it early stages of something that I'm simply not adept to manage?
So you have to understand that when we have all of these networks put together, there's a lot of monitoring tools that have been put into place. A lot of commercial tools that we've deployed to make sure that we can monitor the health, the performance of these devices. It's very oftentimes that we rely very heavily on these tools to tell us whether or not things are working. That said, we will take into account that there being these reports. I can guarantee you right now that the teams have been deployed to kind of look at testing. We're going to try to see if we can get actual access, so actually testing these networks, these links, to make sure that there's actually data flow coming in and out of these devices. So we're looking at it very, very specifically because I can guarantee you that we've got standard operating procedures to look at all of these things. We're going to start with our control plane. We're going to go through all of those steps. We're going to take a look at the data plane, make sure that all of that is covered as well. And if there's any truth to those reports, I can guarantee you that communications internally with my own team is going to be probably at best word of mouth, or we can't communicate with them because all of the technologies that we rely on, like the pager duties, like the automated systems, we may have to go get into a car, drive from technician to technician, knock on their door and say, hey, we need you to get to work because none of this works right now and we really need to get to the bottom of this, try to solve this problem. So that could very well be the case that we're running into. But I think initially we're going to take a look at the board. We're going to look at these things. And when we realize that things aren't actually working, we may have to resort to out-of-band communications, out-of-band methods to get to the bottom of this, which includes having people on site, knocking on your own staff members' doors and getting everybody into the same operating center to look at these things.
Look, Newman, I appreciate the calm, but I can tell you that there's chaos that's brewing and there's a lot of questions that are coming our way. Antoine, I want to come to you, and then Parul, I want to cue you up for this because I've had a note come in from one of our advisors asking that is there potentially something from a hardware perspective that we need to be aware of? And I think the reference over here, or the inference, is potentially to some of the things we've seen in the news of compromised hardware within supply chain.
I think what's interesting is that Shrey indicated that everything looks good. So what we know right now is that something is happening. And it may be reasonable to assume that our own products that are sending us telemetry are kind of lying to us. So back to my earlier point about this could be a very sophisticated attack. It could have came in through a hardware supply chain. But something I would be interested to know is, potentially in the software supply chain. So in a modern security stack, we find that bad actors, especially nation states, are starting to, they'll look at like your email and they want to bridge that air gap. They know that an operation will want to make sure that we've got proper separation of duties, that we don't have local accounts that are accessible on those machines, because it could be that the bad actors, if that's what it is, now we haven't confirmed that, they could have gotten in through our IT network, compromised a user's local account and been able to get into I'll just say, inject either hardware or software into the supply chain for our telecom. But at this point, I'm concerned about us not being able to measure that there is a problem when we know clearly from the media that there is a problem.
I want to work with that. Mohammed, I've noticed you, and Parul, I'll come to you, but I noticed, Mohammed, you were zooming in on what Shrey has shared with us. Is there anything that you want to draw our attention to? We do have another comment online saying that, yeah, it looks normal, but could degrade over a period of time. Anything you want to add?
Well, I've got one follow-up question. I don't know if the data is available yet, but based on the initial investigation that you performed, I understand that you took a look to see if any of the links are up or if there's anything down, rather. But have you also taken into consideration any kind of configuration changes on these devices? Because it doesn't necessarily have to mean that the device is down. Configuration changes may cause disruption as well. And if that's the case, that's not a trivial check to do. So do you have the ability to provide that assurance?
I'll jump in here. We are sifting through the logs. The SOC primarily does collect security logs, and some of the management tools have their own logging on device. So it is going to be a little bit more of a time consumption to go through those systems individually. But it is definitely a concern that we are not seeing the monitoring tools working the way we expect them to. One question I did want to pass back to Ali. The media is reporting, some catastrophic outage. Are we seeing that from our actual customers? Are they calling in and reporting that they are impacted?
Fair question. I can confirm that those who are able to call, our support team has confirmed that at least at the tier 1 level, there are calls that are coming in with intermittent access issues, fluttering of networks, etc. But I'm still gathering what that looks like. I do want to address a point that has come up, and I'm going to look towards Richard first, and then maybe if Rob wants to chime in. And Vivek, I might need you to assist in this place as well. One of the comments that has come in is that at this point, and Richard, you brought this up in our introduction, regulated under federal law, under CRTC, is this the time for us to be sending out any messages or preparing any notes to go out?
We should always be preparing notes to go out regardless of the situation. We should always have those incident response things ready to go. What I will say is it's not just CRTC. There are a number of federal legislative regimes in play. PIPEDA is in play. So we have to ask the questions, are we aware of any inadvertent spike in attempts to access personal information that we control, billing data, subscriber data? Do we know that? If we don't, we need to go take a deep look at it, because if there has been a material breach of data that we are the shepherds of, we need to start preparing mandatory breach disclosure statements to the federal government. And then I'll follow that up just tangentially and say, has anybody called CCCS yet?
Vivek, we have you here. I need some guidance.
Yep, no, building on what Alex and Richard just said, it's premature to declare an incident. And it's really important we work with what we know. At this stage, it's vital to understand the scope and the impact of what we're dealing with. We can't assume it's a cyber incident to start with. 90% of problems happen with human error and change management. So, the point is, the fact that there was a news media broadcast, that should trigger a playbook that has communications going to the board, FAQs going to the executives of what not to say and what they can say. And that should already be pre-done, and that should be in motion. But I think, Alex raised the key point. The customers that have called, the locations of those need to be triangulated. And, the triage stage of this activity is really, let's understand the scope. I think Newman needs to dig into the change records. Logs aren't enough, but what human changes could have triggered this as well. And we need to brief the board so they know whose point. So, if our CTO is on site, they're the point. Who's the incident commander? Who's the voice to the press? And I think that at this stage, it's just, we don't know it's a confirmed incident. That needs to be communicated. I think it's too soon to reach out to regulatory authorities or insurance, but I do like the point about CCCS, Canadian Cyber Threat Exchange, as well as the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. They should be poked at and just say, hey, is anything else going on? Because ODTN is a BC-focused telco, but there may be other things going on elsewhere, and it would be good to just say, hey, is anything up, without getting into too much detail.
Pearl, I know I mentioned that I'm going to bring you into this conversation. I'm just going to ask you to hold for another 2 or 3 minutes, because I'm getting some notes from some other members of our board. that have started to come in. And Rob, I don't know if I'm pointing the question to the right person here, but, and maybe Alex, you were talking to me about this as well, around insurance and what insurance covers and doesn't. Does legal need to get involved with any of that? Rob, first let's start off with you. From an insurance perspective, any actions we need to take right now?
So legal absolutely needs to be involved in everything. This particular situation, cyber insurance is one of those declared events. I think Vivek and others have called out the playbook. That's extremely important. We need to follow our plan. That said, the executive committee, as you know, assembles a quick triage crew, and they'd like an update within the next 60 minutes.
Alex, within the next 60 minutes, he said?
Yeah, I know it's different than the playbook calls out in some cases. And we realize you folks are busy. You're trying to solve for a lot of things right now. I just want people to understand there's a lot of requests from the executive and board committee coming down, and as you're trying to resolve some of these things, we understand we're adding a few things to your plate, but there's going to be a regular request cadence for updates.
Alex?
Yeah, I appreciate that. We do have some team members on holiday right now, so we are running in a degraded state already. We are sifting through the logs. I'm still struggling to declare this an incident because we don't have enough indicators to say. We have a lot of outside suggestions that our systems are impacted. We are starting to see tickets coming in with customers complaining about service issues. Some of them have SLAs that we need to be aware of. I'm going to make a recommendation, and we don't really have a playbook that if our tools don't work, what do we do? So I'm going to make a recommendation to the NOC to start rebooting some of their monitoring tools to see if we can get some more clarity on what's going on.
Alex, I need to ask you very directly, and we can talk about it, but I need to know, do we have an offline list of all of our suppliers, hardware and software? It's a yes or no.
It's a maybe. We do have an incident response plan. We are supposed to be updating it every year.
Alex, that's great. But I can assure you that this was a conversation that was had. I'm getting extremely concerned about the fact that we haven't yet heard much from Shrey, and it's very level right now. You're just telling me things are normal. But I want to draw Pearl's attention to something, and it's going to come up on your screens. Now, Alex did mention that we've started to get some tickets, and I'm growing even more concerned because the ticket that I want to draw your attention to, and it's been texted to me now, the ticket has come from a partner organization, but has a name. Now, on our site, you can go and open up a ticket. They've put in their name as partner organization. It's still open. It goes back to March 22nd. And it's being flagged for me as something suspicious because here's the ask from the ticket, and I'll read it verbatim for you. Dear ODTN Telecom support team, we've been experiencing slow performance on several critical systems, including the internal data exchange platform and secure VPN connections over the past few days. Now note, this goes back to March 22nd. Still remains open. As these services are vital to our operations, we'd like to know if there are any ongoing disruptions, maintenance, or known issues affecting them. Could you also confirm if security or firewall configurations might be causing the slowdowns, given the sensitivity of the data we exchange? We look forward to your prompt response. I do not understand why this still remains open, but our intelligence is now flagging this for us as well. Anything I need to be looking at here?
Well, Ali, I want to invite Newman into the conversation regarding the firewall settings and everything, and I also would want to know if somebody is representing the site support here to be able to comment on this, but I'm happy to take this back and provide more information, although I wanted to add to something that you mentioned to Alex just a couple of minutes back about having a list of all the offline systems, because I
He doesn't have it.
almost about 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to highlight something here because
Sure.
it definitely relates to an intel that I received where adversaries have been exploiting the dormant infrastructure. So are we looking where we need to look? I just wanted to call it out, Shrey. I know you're working hard on all the things you're able to see through the platform, but is the platform encompassing of all the things we have in our environment? And I'm talking about all the offline systems as well, dormant systems, the dormant infrastructure per se.
Shrey, go ahead, please.
Absolutely. I understand the question and the worry behind that. Absolutely, Parul. But here's the thing that we are trying to look as deep as we can. We have rebooted stuff as Alex suggested earlier too. And I'm not talking about the entire network reboot because again, it's just a warning that I've received and based upon that, we cannot reset the network. I need substantial information ready and solid information, which is not just a market or media telling me right now that network is outaging. The problem is on my monitor, I'm looking at things that are online, they're working properly. I would check the logs. I mean, my engineering team is checking the logs at the moment. We have seen firmware updates, but nothing out of normal. That's the most I can tell you right now, but absolutely I'm looking more into it. If I have more information, I will share it shortly.
I want to add one more thing to this, Pearl, and maybe Newman, you can chime in as well, but it'll pop up on the screens very shortly. The same time, March 22nd, approximately, I think about maybe 30 minutes after that ticket, we received another one from Alpha Tech Corp. And I can tell you, we don't have any Alpha Tech Corp. And Alex, if you can confirm this for me, opening tickets is open to the public on our website, which is again something we did discuss but didn't action. But this customer, Alpha Tech Corp, is asking us, Dear ODTN Telecom support, I'll read it again verbatim. We've been experiencing intermittent connectivity issues with our internet service, leading to slow speeds and occasional disruptions. This is especially affecting our remote teams. Could you let us know if there are any service interruptions or maintenance that might be causing this? Additionally, any insights into security or firewall settings impacting the service would be appreciated. Pearl, I don't understand the relation between these two. Doesn't seem like a coincidence. Secondly, why would these tickets, if anybody, SOC or not, anybody here can tell me, why are these tickets still open? I don't know, Alex,
I'll jump
Newman,
in here.
whoever has answers for me, I'll take them.
Well, we don't have answers here, but it did come to the SOC to investigate because the service desk thought it was a new form of phishing targeting the service desk. They did try to engage with the people or organization that reached out to try to validate and authenticate them, and then it went cold. So it's sat in the security operations queue, but it's not been a priority for us to look at it.
Newman?
Yeah, so I think from the first ticket, for us to pull the configuration changes on some of the telco devices isn't difficult. So we would probably already have that information. The next step would then be passing that information back to the operations team for them to provide that to the customer. So, the security team would have done the due diligence. At that point, we would just be passing it over to the operations folks.
Shrey, I'm seeing some of those messages on our Slack group where you're suggesting that very shortly you might be able to show us that one device is suggesting something is up. I'm going to ask you to work with your team and have that ready in the next couple of minutes for us. I have seen more questions come in, especially online. One suggesting that we should find out, is this incident bound to a specific area or distributed around the region? I can confirm that the reports are coming from around the region at this point. There's nothing else that I can say besides we are going to wait on what Shrey has to say right now. But Octavia, based on what you're hearing so far, do you feel that we've given the technical team enough instruction, or is there anything, especially based on those suspicious support requests that we got and the alerts that Pearl has been giving us, is there anything else that comes top of mind to you right now?
There are a lot of things that come top of mind for me. One, I know within the tickets we don't see that the tickets have been responded to. However, being that we pass the information in back channels to the SOC, to other things, I question, has anyone actually reached out to these individuals that opened the ticket and provided them information? The fact that the tickets were open on March 22nd, we got an email about the job postings on March 24th. The fact that we also kind of went into our network diagrams and things were out, and they specifically asked about security and firewalls in both tickets. I question if we can actually scour our internal chats and our emails to make sure that no one has actually provided these individuals that open these tickets any information about any type of security, any firewall, or any other information, because it seems like that is something that that could also cause an issue. And so that's one. Another thing is we need to look at, and see if we have any backups of the systems that we actually rebooted before we rebooted them. My background is in network security. When you reboot, typically things don't come back up. So rebooting also sometimes ensures that configurations are set, and if they are not rebooted manually, then the configuration stays dormant until you reboot. So I would just make sure that, we're trying to make sure that we've done those things, but those are considerations that we need to do instead of just doing things to get things back up because we don't know. We need to be more measured in the way that we actually troubleshoot.
Fair enough. A couple of things. I will inform the folks that are watching online that very shortly we do have some preset polls. These may come up from time to time. Please do engage with them. I will look at the results later on. I'm seeing your questions coming in. We have about 10 minutes-ish left. Shrey, I will ask you to alert me whenever you are ready and let me know when you're ready to tell us if you have any updates. But before I do that, I do want to turn to the audience to see very, very quickly. I'll take one or two comments or questions. Anybody, any question that comes top of mind right now in the audience, just raise your hand and hopefully I can see you and I'll take the question, anything at all. Otherwise, I'll go to a comment that I got. Yep, I saw your hand first, so if you can just speak up a little bit, so then I'll repeat the question as well.
Sure. In the telecom world, why don't we have a guaranteed false positive that can be dropped within your environment so to test your monitoring system?
Great question. So the question is around why don't we have a guaranteed false positive to test our environment? Newman or Michael or anyone from the technical team that wants to chime in, go ahead.
I can tell you that due to resource constraints and the nature of keeping everything, all lights on, we just never had a chance to properly do the testing. It was slated, but we just never got to it.
Sorry, I see our friend from Google, Mohammed, you have a comment to add. Please go ahead.
So not specifically to this, but just in general, I haven't seen it come up yet. You stated that you've got a resource constraint. There was another comment you made earlier in that your security devices don't appear to be working properly. We'll dig into that later, but from a resource constraint perspective, do we have any retainers where we can engage and invoke and bring people in to support you? Because otherwise it becomes a bottleneck. We're racing against time for validation.
And Newman, I'm going to chime in here very quickly. So there's two things I want to draw to your attention. We have had a significant reduction in workforce. One of the individuals that was assigned to one of these tickets is no longer with the organization. Budgets were cut on the SOC side and the NOC side as well. There's a very limited amount of retainer that we have at this point. Michael.
So my question then for Alex, given these tickets that we've seen and the knowledge that we have of this individual leaving, can we confirm that his access was cut at an appropriate time on his departure? And has anybody looked at the logs for the ticketing system, given that neither of these organizations exist as customers? Was anybody poking at our IT management tools in order to try and gain access to our internal systems?
Alex, any update?
I believe HR would have had a process for decommissioning users. We don't use single sign-on on every part of our network, unfortunately. So, you know, the front door, the VPN, certainly, Active Directory, yeah, but our network core devices are still local user authentication. So there is a little bit of a cleanup anytime we do have departures in our environment. That being said, we do use some management tools that act as a proxy between our administrators and our devices. However, if a user does know the IP addresses, they can connect directly on our management network. So there's some concerns there. With the SOC's resource constraints, it is, you know, vacations and somebody's on maternity leave as well. So we are playing catch up and, you know, trying to prioritize what we're investigating right now. There's a lot of great ideas and things we need to look at, but unfortunately, it's only 2 hands and a keyboard per problem that we have to be investigating right now.
Fair enough. Very quickly, I saw that there was 1 or 2 more hands. I'm just going to go to this side, but I will take a question from you later on. Very quickly, sir.
Are there thresholds for declaring an incident that have yet been met?
So the question was, are there thresholds for declaring an incident that have been met? Octavia.
So I think at this point, we can declare that we may have a operational or technical incident. And we're looking into that. The thresholds for a security incident have not been met, but we do see that we may have a technical issue that we're working on.
Shrey, I got your text. I think you're ready to give us an update, please, and hopefully you can bring it up onto the screen. Over to you.
Absolutely, Ali. So recently the engineers reported back to me that utilization spikes began few minutes ago in a couple of devices. I just noticed that the business CPs and the home CPs, which are our premises, on-premise equipments which we have deployed, they have gone offline. When I say offline, the other devices are properly working and functional, as you can see right now, but it's only towards a particular segmented network. Now, there is some anomalous activity. It is possibly some probing that I'm looking at right now, but not a lot. Nothing out of abnormal. We do see these outages every now and then. And when I say every now and then, it means weekly or monthly, once or twice. But again, it may be the same case that we're looking at. As soon as I have more information, I'll provide it back to you.
Rob.
So the executives is after an update again? Also, we wanted just to mention that the cyber insurers that were mentioned before, the privileged communications agreement has come through now. So there can be communications between ourselves and the cyber insurer. There might have been one in the past, but we had to renew that. So there was a short delay in that process. That's worth noting. The final quick item just on the legal side is if there is declaration of an incident, of course, you realize that we have to get back to the regulators in a certain time span.
Michael, Alex, Shrey, Newman, we pay you the big bucks for this. What are we doing now? We need to provide an update, and Shrey has given us nothing short of an April Fool's joke, but something's up.
Well, I can tell you that because there's only limited number of CPs that are down, we're obviously going to investigate those and try to get those up and running. But like I said, it's a work in progress, and teams have been dispatched to go and take a look at those things, and hopefully we'll have an answer shortly.
Alex, I know you have a lot to add to this, but I need to hear from other folks as well, because I'm hearing the same stuff from the technical team. We're investigating, but it's not taking me anywhere at this point, and we're getting stressed about this. Hardeep, please.
I was just going to mention is that at some point in time, we do need to communicate out to our customers and put out a holding message. So we do need to know what we're going to be doing next.
Hardeep,
what we're going to be communicating.
I agree, but I'm going to, Mary, do you want to say something to this?
Yes, we like to activate our communication protocol. So we do have a playbook for this type of scenario where there are media reports. We're in a state of still confirmation in terms of whether it's a disruption. So I do think it's good to put out the holding statement. But once again, we'll work through our cybersecurity privacy lawyer to make sure that's appropriate at this time, or if any language needs to be changed. But yeah, given the media, just in terms of the social media, the open tickets, we need to put out some sort of statement in terms of we're investigating this incident or technical disruption.
Look, you can see me furiously tapping away on my phone. So just for those of you that don't know, our CEO is away golfing in Mexico. And a text has come in asking us not to issue anything at this point. And no communications need to go out at this point. That may be contravening the playbook, but that's the order from above. Octavia, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I just have a question from Rob, and you can answer this and then I'll continue. But who are the executives that's asking for information?
There was a playbook that includes a triage team. I would say all of the C-levels. Well, obviously the CEO, as you know, is golfing. They're hard to get a hold of sometimes, you know how that is. But the reality is the Cs and usually the level below are part of the triage teams.
Okay, so with that said, so thank you for that information. I'll deal with my peers as we continue to make sure that my team is able to work. And if they're asking for updates, then let's actually have that conversation. For now, until we actually declare this an actual security incident, I don't think that we need to invoke any of the cybersecurity or privacy incidents or any type of things. I love you, I appreciate you, but right now we do need to continue to work to try to figure out exactly what is happening, and then we can actually activate, as Mary said, our crisis management and our communication. Let's actually work on that playbook, and then we can kind of keep going. Right now, I do need my team to continue to work.
Fair enough. Richard?
Sorry, I was just going to
Sure.
say real quick, thanks, Octavia. We appreciate you getting after that. We're going to record that you made that decision. And Alex and the remainder of the team, just so you're aware.
Richard, go ahead.
I just want to remind people, the CEO just made an edict that may be contravention of regulations that we are required to do. So we better start getting things in order ASAP to make those mandatory disclosure requirements both to the federal government and to our investors, regardless of the CEOs. I'm sure Rob would agree with me that the CEO may be the CEO, but the CEO is still beholden to the law in Canada. And I will also tell you that I just got a phone call from the minister responsible for the CRTC asking me what's going on and if there's any merit to the news reports that they have heard.
Yeah, Vivek, I was looking at you because, look, I've been here for I'm about 3 months old at this organization. I don't really want to be dealing with the CEO. Is that something that you would take on right now?
Absolutely. Respectfully, Richard, I think we have to give Octavia's team the time to understand the scope. At this stage, it is not an incident, but Richard's correct in that if even a service disruption, we would need to notify CRTC, but we don't know that yet. And so I think we have to be careful not to jump the gun here, and I know there's some emails and there's different clues about things to investigate, but we still have not established this as a cyber event. We still have not established that the media reports are correct. And I liked Newman's comment. He's dispatching people to core facilities to do eyeballs on the box and validate. But I think we need to take a deep breath, give Octavia's team some space. What's crucial in this phase in terms of triage and being able to respond to the public and regulators is we have to know what's the scope and the impact of this event. We still don't know that. And so I think talking to insurance is premature, talking to regulators is premature, because we will just generate more questions and for answers we don't have. So I think whatever we can do to mobilize and also commandeer additional staff, because from our union playbook, a lot of our managers have been trained to cover off some of the field tech duties. We now pull them in to get some eyeballs on boxes and help Octavia determine what is the real impact here. And I think without that, we don't have a triage. Without that, we can't follow Richard's guidance about notifying it. So we really need to manage. I'll manage the board and I'll manage, your peers, whatever I can do to help Octavia. Okay. But we need to give you people. We need to give you support to figure out the impact.
All right. Well, with that, Newman, very quickly, I'll give you 30 seconds.
Yeah, so I'm telling you right now that my teams on the ground are starting to report some of the findings back to the Security Operations Center. I can tell you, summary, they're stumped. They don't understand why this is happening. The equipment is behaving very oddly. They have some recommendations, including things like maybe we should start looking at rebooting or ripping some of these equipments out, just because they don't understand what's happening on the boxes right now. They're pulling everything they can, all the logs, but initial assessment, they don't understand why the device is behaving the way it's supposed to.
Okay. Well, maybe the media has some answers for us, because as we close this module, I'll let you know, CyberX News, before we figured it out, apparently has figured it out and has a media report for us. Enjoy. It's going to come up shortly.
This is Roshan Khan from CyberX News. A government advisory issued days ago warns that advanced persistent threats, also known as APT groups, may be targeting software-defined networking, also known as SDN controllers, a critical component of telecom infrastructure. So far, no response from ODTN Telecom, but cybersecurity experts confirmed that these elite hackers specialize in stealth attacks, exploiting unseen vulnerabilities. If successful, they could disrupt phone and internet services nationwide. Authorities are urging telecom providers to reinforce security, strengthen credentials, and monitor for suspicious activity. We'll continue tracking the story. Stay with CyberX for the latest news.
And that should save the day. But with that said and jokes apart, I'll bring this module to a close by not only thanking my team from ODTN Telecom, but our expert Mohammed from Google and Antoine from Obsidian for providing their perspective and assisting us. Module 2 is where things are going to escalate a little bit more. I'll be leading that module and then passing it over to Newman in Module 3. Shrey, I know you have, along with Alex, some difficult news to give us. But at this point, I'll invite everyone to take a 20-minute break. We'll be back at 10:55, and we'll see you then for module number 2. This is Ali Hirji, thanking you for joining us.